Welcome. I'm Laura Mandel, Executive Director of the Jewish Arts Collaborative, and on behalf of JArts and CJP, our partners in the Community Creative Fellowship of Boston, I am delighted to introduce you to one of our two Community Creative Fellows for 2022, dancer Rachel Linsky. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
Delighted. So before I ask you some questions, I want to tell everybody out there a little bit about you. Rachel Linsky is a Boston-based contemporary dance artist. She holds a B.F.A in Dance Performance and Choreography and a B.A in Arts Administration from Elon University, where she graduated summa cum laude. Rachel's choreography has been presented in national and international dance and film festivals, and her work has been awarded funding by the National Foundation for the Arts, the City of Boston, the Russell J. Efros Foundation, Combined Jewish Philanthropies, and the Beker Foundation. Rachel's been an artist in residence at the Boston Center for the Arts and at Chelsea Theatre Works. She was recently commissioned by us at JArts and the Museum of Fine Arts Boston to choreograph a new work for our 2021 Hanukkah celebration. Rachel's currently a dancer with KAIROS Dance and The Click, and she's also in the teaching faculty at Koltun Ballet Boston. So, Rachel, I want to hear from you, but before we do, I actually want to see a little video here. So we're going to start with a piece. Let's watch it.
I spent 5.5 years in concentration camp because we picked on people. And you as the sheriff, who we elected as sheriff of this county. It's about time you serve the people here. And when this gentleman stands up there and he says he doesn't go after any people, he should read today's B. Because in today's B, the Supreme Court Justice of the State of California objected to ICE coming in and taking people away from the courts. Don't tell me that this is a lie. You stand up here, Mr. Jones. Don't forget, history is not on your side.
Rachel, what a gorgeous video. I love these snapshots of the Zahor project, which is actually how we met originally. So I want to start there. Tell us a little bit about Zahor. Where did it emanate from? What does it show about you as a person, as a dancer, as a choreographer? Tell us.
Sure. So Zahor is an ongoing choreographic series that I've been building over the past 3 years that seeks to preserve Holocaust survivor testimony through dance. With Zahor, I work to create an embodied and resonant approach to studying these testimonies, and I use dance and performing arts as a way to take Holocaust education outside of just the Jewish community, where, of course, it's often heavily concentrated. But when we think of survivors' messages to us, what actually has to go into preventing history from repeating itself, I think that the most important thing that we have to do is open up conversations across communities to not just be staying in our own community bubbles, studying only our own histories. And I've found that the universal language that is contemporary dance is at least one way to start those conversations, to cultivate empathy and connection and understanding. So that's truly what drives Zahor in this work that I've been developing the past few years.
That's beautiful. So you've already spoken to this a little bit, but tell us a little bit more. Like, what do you hope your work will achieve for audiences? I mean, I know personally, specifically, I am so drawn to the fact that you often talk about working with non-Jewish dancers as a key part of the process, thinking about non-Jewish audiences, like you started to say, but Jewish, not Jewish, or otherwise. Tell us, like, what do you hope your work will inspire for audiences?
Yeah. So through the Community Creative Fellowship, the project I'll be focusing on is actually inspired by a composition of Mieczysław Weinberg, who's a Jewish composer born in Poland. He fled from the Nazis and he was the only member of his family to survive. Ended up in the Soviet Union and continued to compose there, but his classical compositions, which most often engage with very clear Jewish themes and influences, specifically Yiddish influences. His father actually had ran a Yiddish theater in Poland before the war. his works with these influences were always seen as problematic. They could never fully take off and receive the global recognition that they truly deserve because of the anti-Semitism that he faced everywhere he lived. When I heard his work for the first time last year, I just fell in love with it. I was so inspired by it. And it made me wonder what dance, contemporary dance of the classical sphere that I work in with clear Jewish influences, similar to how he structured his work, might look like. And I should specify that I'm referring to and will be diving into as I build this Yiddish or Ashkenazic Jewish dances, similar to the influences of Yiddish music in his work. So that movement language is something that I'll be building throughout this fellowship in order to create a work inspired by his music. And my hope is that audiences, both community members who participate in creative process with me and audience members and engaged audience members who are part of the capstone project and the final culmination of the fellowship as well. I really want to share this story with them, share this history. I want to bring some of that deserved recognition to his work and bring people into creating new work inspired by his. For many of the composers whose voices were silenced by the Nazis or by global anti-Semitism, it's like they've been barred from reaching the place in the level of artistic influence in history, so they don't have that trickle down of artists of future generations to keep creating work inspired by theirs. Their voice doesn't have that influence. So to bring people together, to do that, to understand that, to be part of creating something inspired by his work, to me feels like an attempt to restore justice in that realm, at least in the slightest of ways. And I'm very excited for the opportunity to do that by sharing an aspect of Jewish culture, specifically Jewish dance, with audiences outside of the Jewish community as the tool to approach that.
We are so lucky in the Jewish world to have a leader like you, is all I can say. That's really, really beautiful. And I want to know a little bit more, kind of going on this specific front. When you're engaging with our community this spring through the course of this fellowship, I want to know a little bit more about what to be looking for. I mean, I know as a dancer, former dancer myself, that a lot of people will say, whoa, I don't dance, that's scary. And I love how you approach this. So tell us a little bit more about your approach and what this might look like if we meet you.
Yeah. So I envision leading two different types of workshops under this fellowship. The two are certainly not mutually exclusive, but some people do identify very comfortably as dancers ready to dance, and some people might not identify in that way or might be coming into this and have the opportunity to come into this with absolutely no dance experience required. When you think of traditional Jewish dances and the historic Yiddish dances that I've been looking into, they are not designed for just highly trained dancers. They're designed for a community, and everyone in a community of all different bodies and abilities and ages can dance these dances. But of course, there is that thing people carry with them. I'm a dancer, I'm not a dancer. So I've designed two separate types of workshops for different levels of comfortability with dance. One will be structured with the intent of Jewish communities and really open to people in Jewish communities, no previous experience with dance required. And I envision leading those workshops with a range of ages from young to old. And the other workshop format will be really in the dance community with dancers who are predominantly not Jewish. Jewish dancers are more than welcome to be part of those workshops, but the goal is really to open them up and to bring non-Jewish audiences and participants in, and to focus more so on the dance aspect of being what brings us together in that interest.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to dance with you. So I will admit, before I ask you any more questions, I want to watch another snippet of your dance, because while I'm listening to you, all I want to do is watch. So we're going to go ahead and watch another snippet so you all out there can get an even better sense of Rachel's work. Let's watch. All right. So I think that the more we watch these clips of your work and we start to understand as we're listening to you and watching, really what kind of incredible research and storytelling goes into your work. And I know that even right from the very beginning, you talked about the importance of research to this Community Creative Fellowship project, and that you've already started doing a lot of research on the history of klezmer music and Yiddish dance. So tell us a little bit about that initial research, directionally where it's going, what that might look like, because I'm so curious.
Yeah, so the past few months since we began this fellowship, I've been in the initial research stages in this kind of deep personal research dive. And I'm so excited to begin now as we move to this next stage, sharing it with the community. As you can imagine, with Jewish dance and Yiddish dance, it's not often something that you can do alone. It really requires community, and it's about community. There's been so much that fascinates me in this research, and that I'm excited to begin to share and dive into and put into practice and discussion with more people in a wider group. I can share a few of the things that have been most of interest to me. I think one that is really unique to Jewish dance and Yiddish dance is this balance that exists between group and individual when dancing in circles or weaving lines, that within a rhythm, there is always space for individual expression, some extent of improvisation for each dancer to interpret that rhythm in their own way, while dancing also physically connected to others. But it's balanced with this priority on communal care, taking your own space for individual expression in a way that is safe and not harmful to the people you're connected with and dancing with, but also creates enough space for the other people you're dancing with to be able to do the same. And there's this balance. If you're just interpreting a rhythm on your own, you may be able to do one thing and get super carried away with it, which is very fun and very expressive. But when connected with others and making space for everyone to be both dancing together and finding their own individuality inside of it, there's a balance that occurs. And
I just have to say, for anyone listening, what you just described is really the essence of Jewish life writ large, which is when we think about a minyan, the idea of not being able to pray without a group of 10 people, but that the prayer experience really is a personal, individual element of that. I mean, what you're really saying is that Jewish dance really is very much like the concept of a minyan.
Yeah, it is a very beautiful metaphor. That's probably been one of the aspects that's come up in my research or diving into these dances that I'm familiar with, but in a more codified way, that with all different types of communities, I'm so excited to explore. I think another aspect that has emerged that I'll definitely be diving into further is gesture and the details of gesture in Jewish dance and Yiddish dance, and also Yiddish language, have certainly been faded or a little lost over the years for many reasons. but the role that gesture had represented, not necessarily as like pantomime and to replace language, but really something to represent more of like a human thought process. And when it happens in Yiddish dance, it has a really internal feel to it. And I think that playing with those elements of gesture in workshops and in building this contemporary movement language, I think it'll actually prove to be a really useful tool to augment dialogue and to push dialogue around these topics, and ideally to reach places that feel challenging and feel sticky, the places where you can't always find the words, and to see if I can employ gesture in that same way to help the dancers and the people that I'm working with to maybe start to find those words, or at least to capture the essence of that human thought process in it. It's another aspect that's emerged in this research into Yiddish dance so far that I am just so fascinated in.
I'm also fascinated, and I would tell all of you listening that if you are as inspired as I am, you can email Jamie Brody, jamieb@jartsboston.org, to schedule a time to meet with Rachel, because I think you will all be inspired, whether or not you are a dancer. Okay, so Rachel, before I let you go, I want to ask you a slightly separate question, which is simply, who or what most inspires your work?
Truthfully, that's a tricky question for me. I think when I think of that question, I imagine like which like famous dancer or artist inspires, and I've never been one into celebrity culture. I feel like the people that I admire are often the people in my life. So for so long as a dancer, I feel like it's often been my teachers and my mentors who really inspire me. More recently, especially within my work for Zahor, I have an incredibly wonderful community of dancers who I've been building this project with, and I take so much inspiration from them. It's an incredibly collaborative process. I admire them all so much as dancers. When I've danced with them in various films we've made, I can feel how they push me as a dancer, and I admire that and take so much inspiration from them. But also in the sense that I've been doing this work in the structure of an ongoing series, and I feel like every new work that comes in the series is inspired by the process of the last to keep building. And it's all like, you know, as a dance artist, you don't make art with paint or canvases or clay, or maybe you do, some people do, interdisciplinary or anything, but for the most part, I create art with people. So I think I take most of the inspiration from the community and the process and the people that I get to work with.
Rachel, you're amazing. I am so thrilled to have you as a community creative fellow this year. We at JArts and at CJP are so, so lucky. I want to thank you for being with me here now. I want to say thank you and a huge shout out to Sophie Krentzman, who's our partner in crime, the director of arts and culture for CJP. And of course, a shout out to Tova Speeder, who's going to be your artistic mentor for this, and Jonah Hassenfeld, with whom you will be doing some Jewish learning to sort of develop out this whole project. So if all of you out there feel so inspired, you can reach out to us at JArts and set up a time to meet with Rachel. This has been really a delight, and I'm so excited to see what you develop over the course of this year, Rachel. Thank you so much for being with us as a fellow.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.